Hey now, how's it going?
Hi.
Hey, good to
Long
see you.
face to face, right?
Yeah. So for this entrepreneurship, I'm totally happy to hear updates, random stuff like that, but otherwise I thought we could do a fun perspective of division of labor through the lens of the objective personality system. You're a
Oh,
yeah, you're a solo founder, right?
yes.
Yeah. So in your case, it would be what are some of the areas that you may either enlist partners or other people, or just, what are some of the things you can delegate would be kind of the question. And then, like
Okay.
for me, I know my personality type and objective personality, and I know Richard Corbett, so we've already kind of done this. We went through and we looked at here's where we're duplicating each other's labor, here's kind of
Mhm.
our voids or gaps. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll just see
There's
how far
Rachel.
we get. I do want to give 45 minutes before Human Design Catalyst, so I think we'll just keep it to 45. But hey there, Shango. Hey, Rachel. So Shango and Rachel are both in the objective personality class, so they might be able to chime in on some of this as well. My idea tonight for the entrepreneurship is sort of division of labor through the lens of objective personality. And I mean, we could even do this through human design a different time. Like there is going to be something like that. Like, oh, I have logic circuitry, and I don't have the tribal or this or that. But I think with objective personality, it'll be really interesting just to kind of see where some of the gaps are. So I'm just going to kind of go through the checklist, and if you're into it now, then maybe we could use you as our example again, unless
I
Shango or
love that.
Rachel want to. Yeah, that'd
Well,
be
yeah,
great. So
unless someone else wants to go.
yeah, well, and I know that Rachel and Shango are both in the class too, so they might be able to jump in. But I just like that in your case, we have a real example of a business that you're working on that we can kind of ask ourselves, what would this look like for your particular business? But of course, if Shango or Rachel, if you want to try as well, you certainly can. Okay, I see that heart there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up, I'll just share it. I'll share the little checklist here because, of course, I guess we don't have your type so much now, so it'll kind of be like a combination. It'll be a combination of typing you, and of course, because we might not have enough time to really figure out each of the dichotomies, we'll just say, well, if you are on this side, this is what the void will be. If you're on the other side, that's what the void will be.
Yeah.
So we're really going to be looking for gaps or voids, kind of depending what side you're on. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and share it. One second here. I just have a little cheat sheet that I made. Okay, here's the cheat sheet. Let me just download this actually. And we've looked at this before, but this is just kind of a helpful cheat sheet. So,
And this will be helpful for me because I'm new to objective personality.
yeah, and it's a really interesting system. The class has been going great. I really loved having Shango and Rachel and all the other members of the class. The class members have been really wonderful. We've had a lot of chats and things like that. So the first one doesn't really have a void so much. I mean, we can still talk about it, but it doesn't really. It's not as much of an issue. I mean, it could be a little bit, but essentially, observers are going to be afraid of getting stuck or trapped in life. Deciders are going to be afraid of being judged. So, in my case, with my business partnership with Richard Corbett, he's a decider, I'm an observer. But it's not really like a division of labor that much. These others are more division of labor. And we'll get into that in a moment when we look at the others. They're more division of labor. But with like myself and Richard, yeah, I'm an observer, he's a decider. I mean, I think this is one that's just helpful to understand if you have a business partner. Since you're a solo founder now, it's not as crucial for you. Although it would just still be interesting to know which one you're on. Is this one that you've looked at before at all? Do you have any idea what you might be, or?
Observer.
Okay,
Just
so like me, yeah. So us observers, and also like Rachel, and then I don't know about you, Shango. Did you figure out if you were observer decider or which you're leaning towards? Is that, and if you're not able to talk, that's fine too. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Leaning towards observer.
You think you're observer too? Okay, yeah, and we'll get to the bottom of it. But basically, that would make us all observers, which we can tell we're observers because we don't really get hung up on other people's points of view. observers get really hung up on how do I get to the next step. So an observer founder is like, what's the next step for my business? How do I get the business going? How do I, it's less concerned about what will people think of my business? How will it be received in the community? Will people see me a certain way? Is it going to change the way? And it's also not really hung up on like an us versus them sort of thing. Like, I have something so valuable and other people don't see how valuable it is. You'll find decider business founders who get really hung up on other people's ideas. Like, they have the vision and nobody else appreciates it, or something like that. Okay, so being an observer, it really just means working to overcome obstacles, and that's the main thing. Now, Savior DI, Savior DE, I have a division of labor here with Richard. I'm Savior DI, that's introverted decider. He's Savior DE. So we have a nice division of labor here, but it's also helpful to understand each other because these are conflicts too. It's kind of both, right? It's like it's nice to have the division of labor, but then it's also there's a conflict. I can just explain what the division of labor is first, and then you can see if you know which side you're on now. So the DI is very strong in their desires. So I have a very strong vision for Signpost and a very strong vision for the High Desert Human Design Conference. Anything that I come to, I bring, I want what I want and what I'm allowed to do. And, I'm a little bit more, it's like the DI is a little more the Jonah show. It's a me story. And I will just leave people behind if they are not interested. My attitude is kind of take it or leave it. You're coming to my services and products because you like what I do. I'm not coming to you because I like your needs. You're coming to me because you like what I have. And so it's like very much on the self side of it. Now, Richard is on the other person's side of it. And so they tend to have more of the not allowed story, not as sure of what they want. It's kind of a negative way of framing it. The positive is that they highly value other people. So he's a really good person to have kind of at the front meeting people because they just know that he truly does value them. When you talk to Richard, you have the sense that he values what you say. As much as I may practice that, at the end of the day, people sometimes come away with the feeling, Jonah didn't really care what I said. Jonah had already made up his own mind. The DI can appear a little more dismissive on a negative side. The positive side is I have a strong sense of self that I rely on. So it's like they're each positives, they're each negatives. My positive is this strong sense of self that I kind of bring my personal brand to everything I do. The negative is other people might not feel as highly valued. Then you have someone like Richard. He really values others and values their beliefs. He's really good at collecting feedback, and he truly cares and truly wants to learn from others in that feedback. But at the end of the day, he's not entirely sure what he wants. He has some ideas for what the service could be, but ultimately he's like, well, let's gather feedback. Let's get together a committee. Let's design by committee. And I'm like, I hate design by committee. All the great genius comes from the individual. So we have a division of labor. It works, but there's also differences. Do you have an idea now of which side of that you might fall on?
This one, I don't know.
Okay. Well, if you ever decide to record a video, if we hear you
Yeah,
talk about all the,
yeah, yeah,
and yeah,
they,
basically what we listen for is when you're saying like, well, if like here's an example. If you said, I'm working on Human Design Magazine and I'm gathering together great talent for it, and I'm really putting it together so that it can be the best it can be, and I really want it to have this and this and this, and that's all DI talk. DE talk is like, you just have to go for it in life. You're just sitting there thinking, what should I do? And you just have to grab life and just make it happen.
okay,
See how
so that's
different it is?
Savior DI, yeah, so
Because it's
first
very
one,
like inspirational to other people, and it's very
yeah.
like you just have to do it, and like we're in this together, and it's very like you talk. Like you'll hear Richard say that. He'll be like, you'll just be sitting there one day, and you'll just say to yourself, "What am I doing? If I don't do it, And it's like very inspirational. It's like he uses a lot of you, and he uses a lot of we. And I'm just like, I wanted to do this thing. I saw the need that nobody else saw. I brought the people together. It's I talk, it's me story. So that's kind of the difference. So that's something to be aware of is if you are a me story person, you're going to need your DE people because they're going to be the ones to gather a lot of information and opinions from others. Because even though I put out surveys each year of how do we make HD better, and so on. I then delegate that to a group which has a lot of DE users in it. I mean, it has both. It has a mix, but I have a group that I sort of share that with, and that's helpful because I can't just do it all on my own. Like I have a blind spot ultimately where at the end of the day, I'll be like, yeah, that's a good idea, but that doesn't, that's good for some conference, but is it good for my conference? I kind of, at the end of the day, I'm like very much like, this is my thing. And
I
so,
always feel myself trying to be the savior DE. I
so you're probably DI like me then. Yeah. And that's like, if it's just natural and organic for you to, but see, there's a strong side to that too. The strength is having a strong sense of self that you can depend on. Like you can kind of push yourself a little harder than the DE users sometimes, which is funny because they tend to overextend themselves and they do like work a lot for others and so on, but then they can have breakdowns from it because they can't necessarily rely on themselves. Like for me, like when it gets really hard, I'm just like, you got this, Jonah, just stay the course. Like I just kind of like trust myself ultimately. When the DE user is really stressed out, they're like power in numbers. Who do I turn to? Let's get the group together. I need support from others. And if you are a DI user, you also probably don't get as much support from other people or ask for as much support. It's more independent. And so that's one of the things you can work on is realizing there are people who will support you, who will help you. That's something I have a hard time with. It's kind of like I just want to do it all myself. So,
But
um,
just as an aside, does your group do typing? Because I know you pointed us in the
well,
direction.
yeah, in the, I mean, we're all doing typing in the class that I'm in. I don't know if they would type somebody not in the class. I think maybe after the class, I'll see if anybody wants to do that because we're already practicing. Like we have 5 celebrities this week we're looking at and people in the class. But,
Well, I'm just curious. I'm not asking to be
oh,
typed.
sure, sure. Yeah, no, I mean, we're all learning how to type. So we're definitely learning how. And I also eventually want to do some more like intensive type readings of some kind or like type analysis. I was especially looking at partnership analysis because that's one that's really powerful. Is like if you actually know your type and your partner's type, that can clear up a lot. It can be very interesting. But in the meantime, there is cognitive resolution group. They are free,
Yeah.
and
And you
you can
pointed
always
us.
share the
Yeah.
same video with me, and I'll share it with others if with your permission, if they want to give it a shot typing you, and that's kind of fun because part of it is like I have my opinion, I have my version, but it's so nice to get like 4 random strangers to come up with the same thing. It just feels so good. Like it just feels like, okay, this isn't just my opinion. 4 people who don't even know this person came to the same conclusion. So, for instance, right now, Brandy Jordan is being typed by Cognitive Resolution Group. I've already done my type assessment of her. It's on Signpost. You can see it and everything. Richard came up with the same, so we already have 1 corroboration point. So 2 data points already intersected the same. But it'll be pretty cool if we get 4 more. Because then 6 people independently coming up with the same conclusion is kind of like, okay, it seems a little more. Yeah, she's an observer and she is DE, at least in our assessment. Okay, so then now we look at the introverted and extroverted observers. So if you are an observer, which I think you probably are, I have no reason not to think you are at least, provisionally we have you as an observer, then this is going to be a bigger coin for you. This is going to be the main coin. And the main coin is going to be between OI, which is narrowing down, or OE, which is gathering a lot of options, channel changing, really wants to be in control, but then kind of pushes away control. And so this would be in your business. How do you run your business? Do you run your business basically in a kind of narrowing down and saying no much more than you say yes? I have the person pruning here because they're kind of pruning and they're kind of saying like, we want to be like, okay, say you have 20 writers. Do you want them to be the 20 best writers or do you want it to be 20 different writers each time? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, maybe you don't even want 20, maybe you only want 5. The
Mhm.
OI is all about narrowing down, finding the best,
Yeah,
finding
whittling
like,
down. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's what it, yeah. So and then OE, so I'm an OE person. That's more about gathering more, and then I sometimes get criticisms of like, Jonah, you don't say no, enough to the speakers at HDHD. Anyone can talk there. Well, it's not true. I've said no plenty of times. I mean, people don't see how many, how many we get so many speaker submissions, and part of it is we wish everyone could talk, but sometimes we just don't have the space. So we do have to narrow down. But for me, even though I narrow down, it's like really disappointing for me. I'm kind of just like, oh, I really wish everyone could talk. I really wish I could make a space for everyone. I don't want to have to say no to anyone. Whereas OI is kind of like, actually, it's better. Actually, less is more. It's better when you narrow it down a little bit. It's better when you stick to your, path and not get distracted a lot of different places.
Mm.
So, do you think you're more on the OI side? Is that what I heard from that?
I was gonna say OE
Oh, OE.
actually.
Okay. Yeah. So then if you're OE like me, yeah, and I didn't have a strong feeling either way. But if you're OE like me, then basically you'd be really good at gathering. And so you would have no problem finding all of the different people, but the problem would be narrowing down. So like when we talk about like who are your ideal customers, it'd be like everyone. And we're kind of like, but be more specific, and you're like all people into human design. And we're like, no, 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 no. Like we need to narrow it down. We need to so similar to me, we would have kind of a more like wait and see. So people are always kind of like, well, what is HDHD like? And I'm like, every year is different. You just got to wait and see. You just got to be there. And that's a very OE approach. Nothing wrong with that. People actually really like OE users because we're kind of just like bubbly, mad people who just kind of, not mad in an angry way, but just like, just like we're kind of into everything, and we kind of learn about everything, and we're very, very, comprehensive. We look at all different angles and we look at things from all different perspectives. But it's very nice to have OI people around. And see, Richard and I, neither of us are OI. So we really need our OI users. It's so good to have OI people, and I kind of miss having OI people around. I had a partner who was OI who helped with the first two human design conferences. So nice. And when you have a savior OI person, they basically take care of all these things in a way that an OE person wouldn't even think of.
Mhm.
So, like, say you're going to have a party. I throw great parties. People love the parties. However, they can be a little chaotic. An OI person will just go the extra mile to make sure, like, to double check that you have everything you need for the party, to make sure they're just kind of like they've narrowed down exactly what it is. And for OE people, that can kind of take the fun out of it a little bit because we're a little bit like, well, if we know everywhere we're going to stay on the vacation, where's the surprise? Where's the excitement? Where's the fun? The stereotype is that OE are really fun loving people who love chaos, and that OI are really dour, kind of overly serious, closed
Well,
off,
I
wait
don't
and
like
they say.
chaos necessarily.
So you
Just
might be an OI user. So you don't have to look at that because, an OI user is going to feel a huge sigh of relief when they're able to eliminate chaos. And an OE user is going to feel a huge sigh of relief when they have a backup plan. So for me, I'm like, yeah, if this doesn't, like, here's a good example of OI versus OE. You're going on a vacation, the OE user gathers all the different things, way too many things than they'll ever be able to possibly do. They don't make a plan of which one to go to, then they just show up, and then they're like, well, I could do this, I could do that. The OI user is like stressed out by that. They're like, well, why am I even going there if I don't have a thing to do? I want to go to this museum. And so they're like, I'm going to this museum on Tuesday. And they have a little flexibility, but by and large, they go there. Then it's closed, and they're like, oh, I guess I'll just go to the park. But the OE user is like, well, what about the other 8 museums? Well, I mean, what about this play that's going on? What about this restaurant? What about this? See, the OE is addicted to new, and they get really stressed out when they're prevented from experiencing novelty.
Mhm.
OI is comfortable with familiarity, and they get stressed out when they're pushed out of their comfort zone into strange and unusual situations. But it can be hard to tell. I plan a lot when I travel. I plan so much. I look like an OI user because they say that OI users are planners. I also know OI users who have very minimal plans. Their plan is just be in this town for this day. And that's the extent of the plan. They don't have anything beyond that. So it's hard to tell, but ultimately, the way you can tell this coin is basically stressed out when you have too many options, or stressed out when you have too few options. Like, which is more stressful to you? So, in relationships, as an OE user, I can be in a monogamous long term relationship, but I always have options. There's always people around, which can bother an OI partner because then the OI partner is kind of like, geez, if I break up with Jonah, he just is going to get in a relationship with someone else because he has all these options around. So it stresses them out. So you'll find that OI users will actually keep a bigger distance, not have close friends that could be potential partners and things like that, because it's stressful. It's stressful to have that extra options around that could distract from the partnership. Or same with in business, I have so many different things Signpost could do. It's very hard to narrow down. I'm like, well, we could do this, we could do that, we could do these things, we could have, we could have any number of things happening. And it's fun to kind of keep it new, keep it fresh, keep it different. But there's a real downside there too. The downside is the chaos has an invisible cost of constantly having to do new things. Whereas something that's more narrowed down, like if you look at the founder of the objective personality system, he's an OI user. He just says, pay him $20 a month and he'll do one class a week and they'll type one person a week and it's an hour and that's it. It's like the most narrowed down thing in the world. It never changes. It hasn't changed in 6 years. They are the exact same thing every week. It's a new person every week, but it's the exact same format. And it's like super simple and super narrowed down. So as a business, you'll just kind of know if you are, say, if you're OI, like if you are kind of more comfortable with order than chaos, you don't feel stifled by order, you feel like comforted by it, then that's actually a great advantage in business because you can create a format that you stick to every single time and you won't get bored of that. And there's a real advantage there. I mean, you can stick to that same format. The thing is, you will want the OE people, you'll want some of them around to keep things fresh and different and kind of keep it fun and keep it changing and stuff like that. So you'll be coming to HDHD this year. You'll see it's a very OE conference. OI people can actually really enjoy it. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have a good time if you're OI. It means you might actually be delighted because you don't have to handle all that chaos. It's handled for you. You get to just choose what thing you want to go to, and you get a nice schedule with your, times and places. So you get to kind of navigate it in a very orderly way. But each side is kind of excited by the other weirdly. It's like a love-hate, relationship. Like as an OE user, I love all the variety, but there's also something really nice about the same thing every week. And then OI users feel deeply comforted by the familiarity, but they also are kind of like, oh, it's cool that this OE user is bringing so many new things to me and bringing so many different perspectives and different voices, all that. So we often end up proselytizing the opposite. So like if you are an OI user, you might be advertising in your magazine how much variety and novelty you have. I'm an OE user and I'm kind of showing off like, look how organized I am this year. Look how organized our AV tech is. Like we've upgraded the AV. We have way better video. We have better lighting. We have like those are all OI things. Like just all the basic logistical stuff. And I'm so proud of that I'm like, we improved the microphones this year. We improved the lighting this year. We improved the streaming this year. So even though I'm an OE person, I'm like bragging about all the OI stuff. It's funny how we kind of show off our opposites. Okay, so sensing and intuition, this is one where both Richard and myself are intuitive, so neither of us does the sensing as much. And and I see Rachel's comment. She feels now as OE. Could be, yeah. We don't need to make any conclusion. I mean, the stereotype. I don't know you, like well enough, but the stereotype is that OI is very boring, librarian, stick to themselves, but kind of have a wild side that they hide. And then the stereotype of OE, like me, is that we're like life of the. Wild person, bouncing off the walls, constantly sharing, communicating a lot because it's extroverted, but kind of vapid, superficial, dilettante. So there's kind of like negative stereotypes for each. Neither of those are true, but the stereotype generally is that the OI user seems to be very like, kind of conventional and don't go out of their comfort zone as much, but then actually has a wild side. And then that the wild person who seems so interesting and exciting is actually just kind of superficial and vapid. So those are kind of the two. Yeah, and this is not individualist collaborator, Rachel. This would be organizer. So the individualists are deciders who are DI. Maybe that's what you're asking about. I see. Yeah. Yeah, individualists are decider DI, collaborators are decider DE, organizers are observer OI, and so if they're observer plus OI, and gatherers are observer with OE. So those are kind of names that we give to different combinations depending on the coins. So sensing intuition is one that Richard and I both have a void of sensing. And you can tell because when you go on our webpage, you have no clue what we're doing. Like clarity is all about like, you will get this amount of this and you will get that and you will learn this and you will, it's kind of like this is one of our big problems in Signpost is that we don't have enough clarity about what the service is. So it's just very vague and intuitive language. So the difference would be, if you're intuitive, you're naturally going to advertise your magazine through a lot of big overviews, an overview summary kind of language. And you're going to be like, this is the place to be for learning human design. But then people are like, well, why that and why not something else? Why do I learn from there? And you might not give a lot of proof in reality.
Mhm.
So it's good for you to work with sensors or to realize this if you are an intuitive that, oh, actually, we need to have testimonials. We need to have evidence. We need to say we won these awards. We need to say we need legitimacy. We need to say we have we have like writers from different. I mean, I'm an intuitive, so it's hard for me to even think of this stuff. But like different, accredited organizations. We have IHDS certified writers here. We have like all that stuff's very sensing because it's like proving that there's something of value. On the other hand, if you're a sensor, that comes naturally and you're going to be very clear about it. You're going to be like, okay, it's 82 pages. It costs this amount. We have 24 articles. We have this amount of ad space. You're going to have like a perfectly clear description of what it has. But in that case, you might have a harder time on the intuitive side, and it'll be good to enlist intuitives to understand where it fits in with the ecosystem of all of the other services out there related to human design. So that's kind of why it's nice. I think the business model canvas actually helps with both. The business model canvas helps you get clarity about what it is you're offering, but it also is nice to give you an overview because you can look at it and be like, this is the overview of the business. This is the high level summary. But depending what side you're on, one's going to be hard, one's going to be easier. So if you're sensing, you might have a harder time coming up with taglines for your business because a tagline is a summary. You see, I'm an intuitive. I came up with 8 taglines for your business. I'm just like this, 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 this. So yeah, do you have any sense of which one you might be, or do you have an idea?
Well, there's a lot of baggage here from the MBTI terminology, right? Because
Sure. Do
I
you know
did
what you
type,
were an MBTI? I mean, did you
yeah.
take?
So I typed as INTJ.
Oh, okay.
Um,
So that would be an
so
intuitive. Yeah. And
yeah,
and by the way, INTJ would also be OI,
yeah.
right? Because that is O refers to the perceiving function, in this case, intuition, introverted intuitive dominant. Yeah, yeah. So you very well could be. So you could be an
Well,
INTJ.
the test is also it's self-reported, right? It's that
Well, yeah.
that's
I mean, these tests aren't. These are much more objective because these
yeah.
are
I
like
know
we
objective
assess you.
personality. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
Myers
why it's
Briggs can be a
subjective
little
personality. Yeah.
exactly. So I mean, it also you might actually be sensing only because there have
I
been so
feel like
many.
I'm leaning toward
Yeah,
sensing.
because there can be so many wrong stereotypes about sensing and intuition. And I mean, the stereotypes are kind of like intuitives are big picture thinkers with a big vision. It's not true. Like sensing can have such a vision. Like you have a huge grand vision for what you're doing. I mean, you absolutely do. But that's not what it is. It's more like, do you look for proof in reality? And so if you're kind of like, how do we know? That's sensing. Like, okay, we think the magazine's good. How do we know? Let's get some testimonials. Very sensing. Like, let's hear people can report. Let's look for some accreditation. Let's see if we can get an award. Let's see if
Yeah.
even just the proof of how many people subscribe. That's proof. So
That
it's
is,
looking for
I'll say it's a
validation.
bit of a pain point for me right now is the credentials. Like how do I prove that, no, because I have this intuitive sense. Yeah, I have a big vision. It's going somewhere, but you need to
Yeah.
be able to prove it. So
Yeah,
probably,
yeah. And so if you are the sensing side, then working with intuitives to have a little division of labor. Like I'm an intuitive, anytime you want to chat about your business, shoot me a message. And, it's nice to have, or we can use this time each week here. It's nice as a sensor to be able to like offload some of that to the intuitive and be like, help me summarize the business. And I'm like, okay, that's what I do. Intuitives love giving an overview. Like I love to give, high level overviews of things. And similarly, I might ask you and say, how could we be more clear about what Signpost really is? Because right now it's like a jumbled assortment of like 8 different random things. Let's be a little more cohesive. And I find that sensing can be very cohesive because sensing is kind of like, it's not clear what you're doing. Let's clarify this. Like, let's make it more clear. And, if you sign up, for the objective personality classes, even though, see, they have a good division of labor. Dave is intuitive, Shan is sensing. And so they both kind of work together where he has all his intuitive stuff that he comes up with and his summaries of what it is. But then Shan is like, here's what you get, and here's how it helps, and here's the proof. And part of her initiative that she started was the cognitive resolution group because she wanted to prove this actually works. So she started a group where the students could join to be assigned to the teams to type people. That's a way of proving it. That was all her. So she's more on the proving side of like, let's make sure this actually works. How do we actually know? And it's not a defined ego or an undefined ego thing. It's not proving like out of like self-worth. It's just
Yeah, I'm
checking in
not,
reality.
yeah, not using human design as a reference point here.
Yeah, exactly. Good, good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am definitely sensing because the next thing I want to ask you
Yeah.
is where would the place be? Like, how would I be able to reach out to you? Like, which channel? Like, do I DM you?
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't know.
do you mean to chat about your business?
Yeah.
Or oh
Like,
yeah,
if
yeah. I
that's
mean, well,
correct,
well, I
I'm
mean,
not
yeah,
putting you on the spot here, but also
we're
we can
already
use
messaging. No, no, no,
example
we're
for
already
objective
messaging, and
personality.
we can also continue to use this time because honestly,
Yeah.
I mean, if this time is working for you, it's working for me, and I have no plans to change this time at all. But otherwise, I'm pretty much available to chat with anyone on Tuesdays and Thursdays immediately after my 1 hour open radio slot. That's the best for me because I bundle it all together. Otherwise, if I have like an hour in between, I'm like, I can't get a lot done in that hour, so I end up just like, you know what I mean? Like I just kind of end up sitting around waiting for it to. So anyway, but I would, yeah, I'm always available, and I love hearing businesses, and I love human design, and so when the two worlds collide, that works great for me. So love to chat more, and we can also use this time if it's public, but if it's something private, then I'm more than happy to chat.
Sure.
So
Just wanted to clarify that.
I see some comments here. Yeah, yeah, great clarity. No, that definitely fits. Yep, and then Rachel said hard for her to tell, but she's getting sensing vibe because she's very clarifying. Yeah, I think so. That's great. Sensing alert, great. Yeah. So and it's cool. I'm so glad Rachel and Shango are here because they get to kind of apply some of what we've been practicing in class in real time. Okay, so feeling and thinking. This is one where Richard is thinking, I'm feeling. So we have a nice division of labor here, but it also helps. Um, yeah, oh yeah, totally. I'm with you, Rachel. Um, it helps to know this because this can be a point of problems in working with others where like Richard gets really stressed out when things are broken. So I have to remind him we're going to get them fixed and I have to prioritize getting them fixed. I get really stressed out when I feel like we're not on the same page. So if there's something that we're trying to work on and Richard's doing a different project and I'm working on a different project and both of us have kind of gone astray, I start to get stressed and be like, Richard, let's get together to make sure we're on the same page here. What is our next step here? I'm an observer. I'm like, I don't want to get stuck. I don't want to get trapped at this dead end where we're not making progress. We're just spinning our wheels. I want to keep the ship steered in the right direction. How do I do that? I do it by keeping in sync and being responsible for the vibe. This is kind of jargon, responsible for the vibe, but what it basically means is if Richard and I get into a bad vibe, I'm responsible to fix it. I'm responsible to make sure that things are okay between he and I. If he starts to feel kind of bummed out about any of the projects we're working on, or if he starts to question them or lose faith in them or anything like that, it's up to me, because that's the vibe, to be like, no, we're going the right direction. If it's not working, we'll try something else. Like, have no fear. Let's keep going. I have to kind of maintain the positive energy. Now, he's a very positive guy. He has a great vibe. I just mean that at the end of the day, he is thinking because he's really responsible to get things working. There's a lot of baggage from Myers Briggs, excuse me, here as well. Excuse me. The baggage being that the idea is that the thinkers are the engineers and the feelers are these gushy emotional people or something like that. I'm a software developer. I work in computers all the time. I'm a programmer. Like I have feeling. I have the feeling coin. I'm an ENFP. So in Myers Briggs, I'm an ENFP. And I'm very much all about keeping people in sync and working together and finding harmony and just finding a way to keep the positive energy, the positive vibe. Not always positive, but mostly. I mean, it's mostly about if somebody's not feeling well or if they're just down in the dumps or something, I feel responsible to at least connect with them and like, let's deal with this first before we move on. Now, Richard, on the other hand, he is really all about getting things done. So he has this list of all the stuff to get done, and he just goes down that list like a powerhouse. And he's very like he's a decider, but he's very oriented towards just knocking things off the list. Like he just gets them done so much, and I'll kind of drag my feet sometimes. He'll be like, "Jonah, we talked about this before. Like I finally got a payment platform thing. Like it used to be you just had to email me to cancel your account. Now you can actually click a link. You can cancel your account through the link. You can update your credit card. You can pause your account and, resume it. It took me, 8 months to get that done because it just wasn't a priority. I mean, the thinking type would be like, we need to have that all handled before we launch. And I was on the feeling side. I was like, we need to have a good vibe before we launch. like we need to like make sure everyone's happy. And now, again, there's a lot of baggage where you've met Richard. We've all met Richard, and he's a very emotionally present person. He's a very positive person. He's very heart centered. He's a thinking type. So we have to overcome some of our baggage over this. What it really is where's your anxiety? Yes, I'd love to hear your comment or question, Rachel.
So for this one, myself, I think I'm a feelings type. But I was a little bit like, I'm not really sure because this isn't my dominant one. I feel like my dominant one is intuition versus sensing. So
Yeah.
this one is more like I don't know. Some of the things that you were like, the feeling person like really like gets mad when like the vibe is shifted by other people coming in later and is kind of controlling of the atmosphere. See, now this is why I'm having trouble because it's like, and I don't know whether this is just because also I'm a mental projector and it's like I have to surrender so much to other people's like coloring of the vibe. And it's like my job as the, so this is what I wanted to ask, like the feeling person's responsibility for the vibe. So I've gotten this a lot. Like I'm in partnership with another observer, but and he's intuitive, I think, but he's a thinker for sure. And like so like we'll go out together like as a family. We have two small kids, and he'll be like, all right, I've got to go here and here and here. And you guys just stay in the car while I go into the store for like 15 minutes. I've got like my shit I've got to do and I want to deal with it. And the kids are like screaming the whole time and I'm
Yeah.
trapped in the car with again. I'm like, oh my God, I hate this so much. But it's
Yeah.
like, okay, so I'm responsible for the vibe. So when he gets back, he's like, all right, just get over it. Like, come on, you are responsible for the vibe. Like if you could just if you're not in a good mood, then it's like so it's like this weird thing of like so Richard as the example as a thinker, like when you said like when things are going wrong, I'm responsible for the vibe. Is that because you're the one that actually cares about the vibe, the only one, or is it also because like your ability to make the vibe good or bad is stronger than his because you're more like I don't know. What do you understand? Kind of
No,
like
I
what
do
I'm trying.
understand what you're saying. It's like, why are we responsible for that? And I agree that you're also feeling. Okay, two parts. First part, I totally agree. You're observer. I think you're DI. I think you're OE. And you're definitely intuitive. That's the head lead intuitive observer. And I think you're feeling. So that makes you a variety of ENFP. Basically, what that. So the first part of it being like, because I totally see what you're saying in the second part. Okay, well, maybe I'll do the second part first. Okay, so the second part was like, are we responsible for it because we're better at it? Kind of, but I don't know. I don't know entirely. I think it's honestly that it bothers us more when the vibe is off. And because it, like, they have a higher tolerance for the vibe being off. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, I think it bothers everyone, but they maybe don't realize how much it bothers them. So the people on the thinking side, like they will just kind of they just have a tolerance for it. The way I could explain it as feelers is we have a real strong tolerance for the printer being broken. Like the printer's broken and we're like, printers break all the time, this is normal. The thinker is kind of like, oh, people are in a bad mood, that's normal, people get in bad moods. Oh, you guys had a fight, that's normal. You're mad at me today, okay, you'll be happy tomorrow. Like they just kind of have this attitude that the vibe changes, it's out of my control, even if it's not, even if they're the reason it's a bad vibe, right? And the thinking type is kind of like just assuming that the vibe will take care of itself. The feeling type is kind of more sensitive to it because they basically know, no, it's not going to take care of itself. It's not going to fix itself. It's not going to, you know, we do actually have to have a heart to heart communication here, or we do have to actually do something to put people back in a good mood. The kids are just going to keep screaming if we don't get them an ice cream or something, like now the vibe has been like kind of stressed. Like we've all been stressed out by this, and it won't just magically fix itself. So I think it's kind of six of one, half dozen of another. The first thing you were saying though is about how you maybe aren't as bothered by people showing up late and leaving early and things like that. I mean, some of that might be a me thing. There's different versions of it. I guess like I'm not bothered all the time. What I'm really bothered by is I'll be like playing a game with my friend, like a video game, and we have a thinking housemate. Me and my friend are feeling. We'll be having a great time, totally in the zone. We've had like a whole story. It's like the story has been building. Like we've been playing for like 45 minutes at this point. We're like a really hard part of the game where we really have to pay attention and concentrate. And we're like totally in sync. And like I'll play for a minute and then I'll lose and I'll hand it over to him and then he'll lose and hand it back to me. And then we have a guy staying with us who's thinking type, and he'll just come in and sit down next to us and then just start surfing Instagram with the volume on and laughing and they're like, why is he even sitting here? Like there's like 8 couches in this house. There's like 10 different rooms to be in. He somehow likes our vibe, but he's like just like a weird spectator to our vibe, like scrolling his Instagram. Or like sometimes I'll be like exercising and he'll just come and watch me. And I'll just be like, what's up? And he's like, just checking out your moves, man. And I'm like, okay, I'm like working out right now, and you're just gonna like stand there and like watch me. He's from Switzerland. He has like this kind of like broy, like, okay, man, okay, just watching your moves, man. I'm like, okay, cool, I guess. So it's kind of weird. So I don't know, like, it's not like I'm freaking out about it. I don't even usually tell people because it's not just like undefined solar plexus, although that might be part of it. It's more like I don't want to make the vibe even worse. By being like, excuse me, would you stop watching? I'm just kind of like, okay, just keep the vibe going, stay concentrated, stay focused. So I mean, I think these are all good things to think about, and they're really really good questions, Rachel. You always have the best questions, and I think it's just these are open questions. Like we just need to keep exploring like what it really means. Like it's almost here's what's so funny, by the way. Maybe we can kind of wrap up here because I want to take 15 minutes. We'll look at the rest of them next week perhaps, but what I want to just kind of wrap up on, this is a good place to close, is that I'm an extroverted intuitive. So I'm an ENFP, probably just like you, Rachel. I'm an observer, I'm OE, I'm intuitive. And what extrovert intuitives are really good at is gathering tons and tons and tons of patterns. So if you read any Myers-Briggs stuff, you read like 80 different patterns. They're like, introverted sensing types love history and love Christmas time and are really in touch with their bodily sensations and are really good cooks. And it's like every different pattern under the sun. And it's just like insane. Like those patterns might apply to like 80% or even 90% of those people or less, but they don't apply to everyone. They're just like a whole bunch of patterns that kind of maybe apply sometimes. Well, what the founders of Objective Personality did was they sorted through those hundreds of patterns, and particularly Dave, being Savior OI, pruned them all, cut off all the bad patterns, eliminated all the patterns that didn't work 100% of the time, narrowed down, found what the one pattern that works every time. And now it's kind of like, how do you tell if you're feeling or thinking? Well, one way of putting this pattern would be, do you get really stressed out when you can't set up your auto bill pay? Okay, you're thinking. Do you get really stressed out when you can't log into Instagram? Yeah, you're thinking. Do you get really stressed out when something's not working and it's broken? When the printer won't print? You're thinking. Simple as that. Are you really patient when those things happen? Are you like, it's okay, your video's not uploading. This stuff happens all the time. Here, I'll help you upload your video. Then you're feeling. And it's like the simplest little pattern in the world, but it works every time. Like I'm feeling, James Alexander's thinking. He'll be like, we often, work together. He'll be like, and I'll be like, what's wrong? He'll be like, this video just won't upload. Like that's his big thing. It's like, this video won't upload. It's not working. And I'm like, it's okay. Just take it easy. We're going to get the video working. So, I mean, it's like the silliest little thing in the world. And you kind of like would ask Dave or Shan, like, hey guys, why is this the pattern? And Dave's like, I don't know. It's just the pattern. I was like, why? He's like, it's just the one. I tried every different pattern. This is the one that works every single time. There's no exceptions to this pattern. So like even the patterns that I'm giving are kind of bloated a little bit. Like maybe 95% of feeling types get really annoyed when someone shows up late and the other 5% don't. Maybe you're one of the 5% that's not bothered by that, Rachel, right? Or maybe like we need to just drill down into what responsible for the vibe really means. Maybe some feeling types aren't as patient fixing things. I've never seen one. Everyone I know who's been typed as feeling is pretty dang patient with fixing things. But, even I get frustrated sometimes and go, why won't this thing work? I've been working on it for hours. So I guess this is just to say, like, that's what's cool about the objective personality system is that by and large, these are like as narrowed down as they could possibly be. Like proof in reality ensures clarity. You could pretty much narrow down this entire little sentence to just clarity. It's about as narrowed down as you can get. And then you could probably narrow down this whole intuition one just to understanding. And you could probably narrow down feeling just to vibe. And you could probably narrow down thinking to it works. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like at the end of the day, those are the things to look for. And I do have to be careful as an extrovert intuitive. I don't want to bloat these beautiful little patterns with all of my extra patterns, because my extra patterns probably aren't needed. But at the same time, they can sometimes help explain things. So were some of these wait, I'm catching up on the interview. I mean the comments. Feeling sees thinking as tone deaf. Sometimes, yeah, it can, but I mean, thinking sees feeling as really controlling. Like they both see each other as inconsiderate. It's not just that feeling is like how inconsiderate to the thinkers. The thinkers are also like how inconsiderate to the feeler for being so controlling and dominating the conversation and stuff like that. But a thinking would have called the thinker out. I like that. We should have a real world style reality show at the house. Yes, Rachel, that would be a lot of fun. Masculine DE, it's masculine SE for me, or sorry, SI, the masculine sensing. But yeah, I get your point. Yep. And on that note, actually, it is. I'm looking at the clock right now as you're saying that. Yeah, almost like the physical world matters to the thinkers and the social feeling world for the feelers. Yeah, I think so, in some sense. And it's a relief learning that not everyone cares about things working all the time. Yeah. It is. It's less pressure for the thinkers. Yeah, that's a good. And then Rachel says she lived with a broken stove for a year and it was easily fixed. Yeah, like door handles, stuff like that. I'm like, just fix it, Jonah. Just fix it. It's not going to be that much, but somehow I can tolerate it more easily than I can fix it. Well, this has been really lovely. I'm really enjoying these entrepreneurship ones. Let's keep it going next week. Now you can reach out to me anytime if you happen to be on tomorrow or Thursday and you want to chat after my open radio. We'll do that. Oh, cool! It made your whole image light up like that. That's awesome. Yeah, tolerating easier than fixing. Yep, exactly. Thank you for that, Rachel. So, okay, till next week and or till 15 minutes if you're going to be on Human Design Catalyst. Take a quick break and I'll be back soon. Take care.